Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
So we have lots of exciting questions from our viewers today.
All right.
All right, the first one has to do with solitude. How important is solitude for going through the eye of the needle? I feel more joy, alignment, and aliveness during solitude. Can you expand on this?
The very idea of solitude is what has, to some degree, been happening because of your pandemic, allowing each of you to go within, be with yourself. It can be very important. It doesn't necessarily have to exist for everyone. But the idea of solitude allows you, shall we say, to really focus on yourself, allow your entire environment to nurture you, to cushion you, to allow you to be aware of the things in the quiet, in the silence, that are important for you to pay attention to without the idea of outside distraction, as you say. Now, again, not everyone is distracted by outside sounds, but for most people on your planet, solitude will be very important for you to take stock of who you are, to be quiet within yourself, and to really hear the thoughts clearly that come through your mind, to be able to discern the difference between those that work for you and those that do not. So solitude for most of you can be very important toward learning who you are.
Thank you. People with ADHD do not maintain focus on a single thing for a long period of time. They switch their focus rapidly from one thought to another, all based on what's most exciting to them. Does this mean that people with ADHD are better equipped to perceive the shifting of parallel realities, follow their excitement, and choose their preferred reality?
Not necessarily. Again, you have to take this on a case-by-case basis, because some of what you are referring to as ADHD can also be happening for negative reasons. It can be an avoidance issue. Switching from one thing to another rapidly doesn't necessarily represent the idea of following the waxing and waning of your excitement in a natural way. So the idea is you will have to look at the reasons why someone might switch, even with the experience you call ADHD, and avoid the idea of doing so because you're not willing to look at something that might be important to look at, to stay with something that might be important to stay with. So again, on a case-by-case basis, you will have to determine what is actually happening and whether for some people it is positive or for others it is negative. It can, in a positive way, represent the ability to go with the flow of your excitement, of your passion. It can, based on a positive utilization of the idea of switching around very rapidly, connect you to different parallel reality probabilities and options. But again, one must always be honest within themselves as to whether this is a flowing experience, following your passion path, or whether it is an avoidance experience, not wishing to look at things that you believe you might find painful.
Can different personality aspects within an individual's mind hold concurrent beliefs that disagree with each other, essentially?
Yes, of course. You find this most often in what you typically have referred to as dissociative identity disorder, or what you used to call multiple personality disorder. Because you know from the research that's been done there that one personality can switch to something completely different as a personality and have a completely different experience, completely different perspective, completely different opinions from the other personalities that may have been present a moment ago. So yes, it is absolutely possible.
How can I burn the fear-based beliefs that I'm not aware of? Are there ways to burn through them without having to become aware of each deep-seated issue?
The use of the term burn through them is interesting because it's not that you really have to burn through them to burn them away or burn them out or turn them to ashes. Again, it's the idea of being honest within the self as to what does and doesn't work, but not invalidating what doesn't work for you. But the idea of belief systems that are in the unconscious or subconscious mind in that way can again always be brought into conscious recognition. by allowing yourself to ask what's going on in your physical reality, because the emotions, the thought patterns, the behaviors, and the experiences that are reflected to you are guiding mechanisms to help you determine whether you are holding on to negative fear-based beliefs or whether you are moving forward in a positive way. All you have to really do is be observant as to what's happening in the emotions, the thoughts, the behaviors, and the reflections of physical reality, to let you know that these are reflective of beliefs you may be unaware of within yourself. And again, always being able to ask the question, what would I have to believe in order to feel, think, behave the way I do, will always help you get in touch with them. Do you always have to be aware of what the belief is? No, there may be some exceptions. There may be techniques, tools, and certain kinds of permission slips. If you are really willing to know that you are powerful enough to switch, to become a truly different person in the moment, to know that your past is different, to let go of those things automatically and quickly that don't serve you, if you have that ability, then fine. You may not need to know exactly or precisely what the belief system is, but how many of you can actually say that you can do that without having some idea of what kind of belief you're holding on to? So again, it takes a great deal of clarity, transparency, and honesty to know whether you can truly just let go of all the negative and fear-based beliefs, whether you know precisely what they are or not, or whether you actually do need to go through a process of understanding what it is so that your physical mind can also have the same kind of clarity as your higher mind. So you have to each determine for yourselves how honest you are about whether you believe, truly know for a fact that you can do that without knowing what the belief actually is.
Could you define gratitude and humility?
Gratitude is the total acceptance of what is, and the allowance, total allowance of it being exactly what it needs to be to teach you what you need to know, to grow, to learn, to expand your consciousness. Humility is knowing that, again, the ego is only for the purpose of allowing you to focus in your process and experience of physical reality, and that there is not necessarily information that is accessible to you in what the ego thinks it should be, but to know and to trust and to allow your life to unfold in the way that it unfolds through synchronicity, knowing that everything is working perfectly. And if you are willing to remain in the positive state, then you can express the humility of knowing that everything you need is presented to you. Nothing is left out, but that you also don't know everything as to exactly when or how things should come to you. That you're willing to accept what is going on and make the determinations as to what works for you, to allow creation to unfold in the way that it automatically can, and to accept the totality of yourself and be appreciative of yourself and the way things unfold in every given moment.
And what is the difference between discernment and judgment?
Again, honesty can allow you to know the difference between excitement and anxiety, and therefore, with anxiety can come judgment. Discernment is simply the neutral observation of what is and isn't vibrationally compatible with your core vibration, your core frequency. There is no, shall we say, evaluation of it in the sense of this is better, this is worse, this is good, this is bad. It is the willingness to simply discern what isn't you vibrationally, but also the willingness to use whatever comes up in the most positive way for you, knowing that everything is happening for a reason. If you're willing to stay in that positive state to determine what that is, it will reveal itself to you. So again, honesty, knowing the difference between excitement and anxiety within yourself, and being in that neutral space that allows you to simply recognize, to simply observe what is and isn't you, as opposed to making an emotional reaction or response to it that brings with it some kind of value judgment.
And is there such a thing as positive ego or negative ego energy or manifestation?
Yes, of course. Again, the negative ego is the result of putting too much on the shoulders of the idea of the physical mind, when it's not designed to actually control anything, but only designed in the positive ego sense, the neutral ego sense, of allowing you the opportunity to have a physical experience. As we have often said, it's sort of like a diving mask when you go under the water. The ego is simply structured to allow you to have clarity in the physical reality experience. The negative ego thinks it needs to control everything because it's been given that task, because people may not understand that everything is automatically working in exactly the way it needs to. Even if things crop up that you don't prefer, it's there for a reason. So the positive or neutral ego will accept that it's there for a reason and stay in a positive state, just doing the job it was designed to do of allowing clarity of what's happening. Whereas the negative ego thinks it needs to know what will happen, what is going to happen, so it can control everything and manipulate details into place to make sure everything works, instead of simply surrendering to the fact that everything does work when you let go of the need to try and control everything.
Here's an interesting situation. While I was following my excitement last week playing soccer with my kids, I suddenly lost consciousness. I fell and fractured my jaw. It's still a mystery as to why I lost consciousness. Everything checks out okay. I'm looking for answers. When I was woken up, I recall waking up from a festive dream before the pain set in.
Yes. Many people on your planet will allow their lives to unfold to a certain point in what seems to be a normal way, a natural way. But then they will give themselves the opportunity to accelerate themselves greatly. And often, when people are changing and shifting from one parallel reality to another quickly, they will do so by injuring themselves with a blow to the head in some way, shape, or form. And after the fact, realize they now have more abilities than they used to have. As soon as the pain subsides, you may find yourself experiencing things you didn't experience before with regard to being able to perceive different energies that were heretofore invisible to you, or being able to be in a channeling state and bring things through that you couldn't bring through before, to see things in a different way. This is quite common on your planet, to shift your reality by giving yourself a blow to the head, which rearranges all of your neurological network in your brain to make it more efficient for bringing through higher frequency information and energy. And the idea of having the festive dream is an indication of what your reality can be like after the fact that you have received this blow. So you will heal, but you may also find that you have rearranged your ability to perceive things that you couldn't perceive before, or do things that you couldn't do before or didn't think you could do before. This is quite common on your planet. Many people who have blows to the head after the fact, when they heal, will find out that they are now quite telepathic, quite psychic, or quite able to channel different energies through themselves. And the idea of actually fracturing the jaw may be an indication of the direction that this energy will take, in that you may be able to express things more clearly from a higher frequency level and connect to your higher mind more readily and bring through information and share that information with others where you wouldn't necessarily have thought you were capable of doing so before, what you typically think of as an accident, which isn't an accident at all.
And why do I get undeniable signs from the universe only to find out that I was misreading the signs? Can I not trust my intuitive understanding of the clues life offers me? What am I missing to help me have a better, more realistic understanding of what's being communicated to me?
All right. Well, again, great honesty, self-investigation may be necessary here. Yes, of course, you can trust your intuition, but the real question is, are you actually going off of intuition? Or are you going off of presuppositions and belief systems that are making you think you're going off of your intuition? So you may have to clarify within yourself if there are any unconscious or subconscious wishes going on that create an insistence within you to think that, yes, this must mean this because I really want it to mean this, as opposed to being honest about what it actually signifies to you. So a great deal of self-investigation and introspection may be necessary to be able to tell the difference more clearly as to whether you are actually getting a result from unconscious wishes and insistences, or whether you're actually using your intuition to understand the meaning of certain signs that appear in your life.
Okay. How do we stay in a positive state regardless of the circumstance? It sounds so easy and exciting when you say it, but then when I'm back to life, I'm not able to do it. And how do I dissolve a negative belief that tells me that I can't dissolve a negative belief?
Well, first of all, you have some interesting definitions going on in that question. The idea being that when we say something, you understand it, but when you go, quote unquote, back to life, as if life was different than what we're telling you. So the idea is you're still making a difference somewhere in your belief system, that what we're saying and what you know to be true when you're allowing yourself to go into the state that matches our frequency is somehow different than the frequency you go back into when you, quote unquote, relive your normal life. So the idea is to not make so much difference and realize that you can say these things to yourself and trust that they are true for you when you say them, as well as when we say them, allowing the idea that you're holding on to a belief that it is difficult, that there is a difficult difference being made within your belief system between when you are engaging with a being like us and when you are engaging with yourself, as if you don't have the same power to tell yourself that you can, in fact, move forward, and still are holding on to the belief that there is a difference between the two.
And you say, don't invalidate what you don't prefer.
Yes.
Something negative is in your path for a reason, so don't invalidate it. It makes things worse. If Bashar said this, could he please explain it? I think I understand, but I really want to be clear and sure that I understand it.
All right. Well, again, remember, every circumstance is fundamentally neutral. It doesn't have built-in meaning. You may have been taught to think that certain things have meaning. This is bad, this is good, this is negative, this is positive, but anything can be used in a negative or a positive way. So the idea is to recognize the neutrality of what's happening and instill within it a positive definition, not saying that the negative thing you may recognize as mechanically negative is positive, but that there is a positive reason why that may be cropping up in your life, that you can use this negative thing that was maybe created out of negative energy in a positive way if you remain in a positive state, because it's only determined what you experience by the state you choose to be in. So even though you may recognize that something was created negatively, even though you can still understand that it may be a negative thing on its own, you can still remain in a positive state, because then that's the energy you're putting into why you are observing it, why you are experiencing it as cropping up in your life. And by remaining in a positive state, you will be able to extract the reason, the positive reason that could be there for why it's in your life. If nothing else, as we often say, on a very simplistic level, sometimes attracting something you don't prefer can actually help with clarifying what you do prefer by contrast. And that's a positive way to use what you don't prefer, is using it to clearly define what you do prefer instead. That's another way of staying in a positive state and giving the reason why it's there a positive meaning. So ideally, hopefully, that will clarify the issue for you.
I've had out-of-body experiences since I was little, but I've never left the perspective of my body. Now that I understand what it is, I still can't shake my fear of it and go off and explore. What is your perspective of out-of-body experiences, and is there anything to fear?
There is nothing to fear. Out-of-body experiences will usually remain somewhat close to Earth. It's not the same thing as a near-death experience. It's not the same thing as actually dying when you go deeply into the spirit realm. Out-of-body experiences are still vibrationally connected to the Earth plane. However, that doesn't mean you can't go exploring the Earth plane or the lower astral realm, and that doesn't mean you can't access a lot of information, even though you may not have a full experience of the spirit realm. But there's really nothing to fear. You will have to find out what it is specifically that you are afraid will happen if you do go exploring, to find out what that belief system is that is anchoring you into a very small locale when you're out of body. So unless we are engaging you in a further dialogue, you will have to do the investigation within yourself as to what you believe might actually happen that you're afraid of if you go exploring. And perhaps then when you ask that question, the answer will arrive and you will understand that it really doesn't make sense because there's really nothing to be afraid of. First of all, you are in that state non-physical, unless you are afraid that something will happen to your body while you're exploring, like you have to watch over it or something like that, like a guard dog. But again, remember, these things are natural. Exploring beyond the physical is very natural for many people, and you do this all the time when you dream pretty much anyway. So there's really nothing to be afraid of. You are still here, you are still living your life, and there's no way you're really going to leave. There's really no way you're going to die or that harm would come to you in a lethal way until you yourself have finished whatever agreement you have made to explore physical reality. So again, you have to dig down and find out for yourself. If you did go exploring, ask the question, what am I afraid might happen? And then allow yourself to hear the answer, to receive the answer, and you will see that it really makes no sense. And then perhaps it will be easier for you to let that fear-based belief go and have more fun going out and exploring.